It says it's live, but it's not just yet. So give it.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking at it here and I don't see anything. So I'm looking at the right place. I'm on our YouTube channel.
Okay. We're live. Okay.
Are we? Hold on. Is that on a different page than with the archived ones, Travis? So I'm trying to log on to just so I can see what it looks like and I can usually see who's watching us.
Same as cumberlandcounty.org/live is usually the easiest way to find it.
I went into that and this kicked me off to it. Let me try that again.
There's a workshop for tonight for the Portland City Council. I just checked it out.
Yeah, we should be able to see the meeting streaming live right now.
See if that gets me where I'm going. YouTube. Oh, live now. There we go. Okay. I guess I needed to refresh my screen. Okay. Okay, we've got about a 10-second delay, so I'm going to turn my volume down so we don't get feedback. All right. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the September 14, 2020 meeting of the Cumberland County, Maine Board of Commissioners. We are coming to you at the moment live on YouTube, and we are the commissioners and staff are participating in a Zoom meeting, which is what the live feed is. The public can watch our meeting on our live stream, and if you are watching our meeting, you know how to do that. And if you would like to make comments, you may do so by emailing Kennedy@cumberlandcounty.org prior to or during the meeting, and we'll pause for a couple of times to read and address as necessary any public comments that come in. So that address is Kennedy, KENNEDY @cumberlandcounty.org, and be sure to send any comments or questions or whatever to Mr. Kennedy, who is manning the switchboard for our meeting, and he'll make sure we know about that. Okay, first I'd like to call the meeting to order. First I would be soliciting a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of July 21st, 2020.
So moved.
Moved, and do I have a second? And Steve Gordon seconds. I'm gonna do this by roll call because I think that's the protocol for a Zoom meeting. Commissioner Gordon,
Yay.
Commissioner Cloutier,
Yes.
Commissioner Witonis.
You're
She's
muted.
speaking. I think.
You're muted, Susan.
Sue, you're still muted. Can you?
Go on, Tom. She'll catch
Okay.
up.
There you go.
I'm abstaining because I was not at the meeting.
Okay. All right. Good. I was going to say this looked like you were trying to tell me something more complicated than yes or no. Commissioner Jameson.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Any nays on this item? Seeing none, I think that passes unanimously with the single abstention. Next is informational reports or presentations, and I think Sheriff Joyce has been invited to share some information about what's happening at the jail in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. Sheriff.
Yes, thanks for the invite, Commissioner Coward. So this COVID, dealing with the COVID's been like building a plane at the same time you're flying it. It's one day changes from the next, but I think we've got it down to at least what we think is an aggressive stance on keeping COVID out of the jail, at least with inmates. So if an inmate is brought in now by an arresting agency, medical and the corrections intake staff will go out to the cruiser. The individual, the arrestee, is never taken out of the car until several things have done. You know, first of all, they've been asked a questionnaire of where they've been, have they been with anybody, et cetera. We do an oximeter test, which basically measures their O2 content. What we found out early on was that the body sometimes will try to overcompensate for not being able to breathe correctly. So an indication of a 94 oxygen rate, if you will, could be an indicator of somebody having COVID. So we do an oximeter. We also do a temperature check. And then lastly, as of June 28th, we also threw in my opinion, the coup de grace, which is an Abbott test. The Abbott test, we do a swab, we test them, and within about 20 minutes, we will get back a positive or negative test result. If the person tests negative, then we take them out of the cruiser, they're masked, they're brought in, and they're processed as any arrest would have occurred a year ago. If they test positive, then they're taken out of the car, they're given a mask, and we shut everything down in intake and move that person immediately down to medical to the negative pressure cell, which is an isolation unit. And that person will stay there. The negative pressure it's on its own ventilation system. So we will manage that person in medical until we see fit, whether the person's released, whether the person's tested several days later to see if they still have COVID, et cetera. So we're pretty aggressive at the intake. In essence, with the exception of a few cases where people have been uncooperative, everyone is tested before they come into the building, and we kind of know what we're dealing with before they come in. If somebody's uncooperative, we treat them as if they've got COVID, and we move them through the jail that way. Generally, what we found out is if you're uncooperative, and there are people that are uncooperative, whether they're using substances or drunk or whatever, eventually they become cooperative, we get a test out of them, then we can refer back. Once the person that, even if they've tested negative for the COVID, once they're processed and they can't not be released, then they still go to quarantine. You know, our belief is this: there is a very minor, marginal rate where the test could be wrong. It's about 3%, what I've heard. So we send them to quarantine. They're there for 72 hours before they move into general population. If you remember right, when we first started this, we were keeping people there for 14 days, checking their temperature, looking for symptoms, et cetera. So for 3 days, they're in a quarantine position. We're monitoring them and checking them like we did before. But again, we've had the luxury of having a test prior to that. So that's the intake process. The employees coming to work process right now, everyone is given the questionnaire. We test their temperature. If we see one of the symptoms that could be COVID, we send the person home. Now, we are looking at the potential of, if we see one of these symptoms coming about, whether or not we can give them the COVID test as well. A little bit more technical, because our inmate medical is willing to do this, but they're set up to do medical records for inmates and not employees. So we're working with HR to try to develop a form that can do that. The other thing is, we got to worry about HIPAA. We need to make sure that, you know, if a corrections officer comes in and everyone sees them and everyone's tested, and then all of a sudden that person doesn't come to work through the lobby, then you're going to kind of know something's up. So we're trying to figure out how we get through that for confidentiality sakes as well. So the staff is working, and we have a plan, but we're in the process of working with HR to try to figure out how that plan goes forward. As far as in the jail, once you go in the secure perimeter, you have to wear a mask all the time. And that mask is a CDC approved, OSHA approved mask. It's something more than a medical surgical mask, but it's not quite the N95. And we require all inmates to wear it when they're out of their cell, and all employees to wear it while they're in the secure perimeter. So that's what we're doing on that part. On occasion, we have to remind the inmates to put your mask on, or sometimes they'll let it drop down below their nose, et cetera. So we're always reminding people of that. My indication is through the command staff, and I've asked Major Courts to join me in case there's any questions that I can't answer. Everybody seems to be conforming to that because everybody is kind of worried about it, first of all. And then secondly, what we've seen in York County, it just brings it a little bit more real for them. So they're wearing their masks as well. If we have, and we've had five cases. The first one was a case where the individual was brought in by a PD. 24 hours later, that was on June 28th, we got a call. You might want to check inmate so-and-so because their mother has COVID. We went, we tested. The person was asymptomatic. He was surprised, but he had COVID. We immediately started testing everybody that person had, that inmate had contact with it, and eventually tested everyone in the jail, whether it was an inmate or whether it was an employee. That was our first run at it. We didn't do a great job at it. So what we've done is created a rapid response team whereby instead of trying to go at it in one big group, we have people sectioned off. It's made up of Captain Goulet oversees it. It's involving EMA, HR, CDC, Portland Public Health, and then of course Armor, our medical contractor. They will get immediately called and they will start running parallel tracks on testing inmates on one side, testing employees on the other, and work on the contact tracing. Now, going back to that first case, when we started testing inmates, we found 2 other inmates that were asymptomatic, not showing any symptoms whatsoever, but they tested positive. Now, in the contact tracing for that, they didn't have contact with the first guy, no contact whatsoever. And the other 2 that got it were in separate pods and they didn't have contact with each other either. So again, for cases of asymptomatic and what they called an outbreak at that time, because we had 3 cases, it was pretty minor, even though it had the potential of being really, really bad. And we isolated all those folks. We tested them a couple of days later and they came back negative. We didn't trust that. So we figured, okay, we got a positive, a negative, let's test them again. We come back with a 3rd test, which was negative, and things were back somewhat to normal on August 4th when we were cleared by the CDC. Some people in medical would say that it was not an outbreak, and even some of the CDC people will say that, but people in the upper echelon called it an outbreak because there were 3, even though they weren't related. We had about 3 weeks ago, we had a deputy bring in somebody that was involved in a domestic. She tested within 4 hours, and she was positive. She had some medical issues, went right to medical, and quite frankly, she didn't stay in the jail long, so we dodged that bullet. She did have one symptom that a little bit more than asymptomatic, we think she was symptomatic. And then a 5th one, about 2 weeks ago, we caught the person, Portland brought the person in, was a homeless individual. We tested him, come to find out he was tested positive. Again, asymptomatic, a surprise to that individual. And the Portland police officer wrote a summons and the person never came into the jail. So we've been very aggressive. The staff has done a phenomenal job. Armor has done a phenomenal job. Dr. Vore is like aces. He's our medical director there, and he's got some knowledge. But like I tell everyone, we've been very aggressive, but we've been very lucky too. The one thing we cannot control is, one of our employees running up against somebody in Hannaford or going to an event or something like that. Being asymptomatic, not showing up on the temperature gauge or answering questions that would lead you to believe the person has the COVID. And then unfortunately they get in and spread it around unbeknownst to us. And before we know it, we may have COVID in the jail. So we're still trying to figure out how we do a better job. I tell people that every day, about 80% of the day is either checking up on people, COVID, dealing with COVID, and trying to figure out how do we take it to the next level. Lastly, I think what brought this to this meeting was the fact that we've entered in an agreement with York County. A few weeks ago, I want to say it was the 2 weeks before Labor Day, I got a call at about 11 o'clock from the sheriff down there asking for some assistance. And he rolled out that he had like approaching 50 cases. And he had mentioned maybe sending some inmates from York to Cumberland. And I said, I'm not really into that because we're just going to move it around. But he also mentioned maybe taking some arrests and stuff like that were coming in. So I spent the night thinking about it. We made a proposal to them that we were able to confirm about a week later that we would take all arrests. I mean, we have to make sure that public safety is paramount. And if it can't function in York, we're the next closest. So there are reasons why we have to bring people to jail. Just because we have COVID doesn't mean the crime has stopped. So we offered them, and which we are in agreement with, that we are taking all arrests from York County that are felony and crimes against people, not traffic felonies. And then we will not take any misdemeanors, only domestic violence or domestic violence related violation of release or something like that. So we've really limited the number of arrests that are coming into the jail. When I'm done, I'll have Major Courts tell you how many arrests we've gotten in the last week and a half. But we have at least done that. I can tell you that people from Lebanon or arrests from Lebanon, arrests from Sanford have been brought to the Cumberland County Jail because they've met that limit that these people have to be in jail. Now, what does that do for us? You know, we've been working with the state. We hold federal inmates, and now we're holding York County inmates. And everybody wants their person in front of a judge. The judges have not really allowed inmates to come into the courthouse. So the command staff and the correction staff have done a phenomenal job of getting iPads so that the inmates can meet and have FaceTime with their attorneys, trying to do video arraignments, trying to do video court. You know, the state wants this, the feds want this. They think they're the first and only people. So they've been really trying to coordinate that. And then going back to the York inmates, those individuals are never going to make bail generally, or at least they're not going to make bail for a couple of days. So it's added a different amount of stress because now we have to make sure that the inmates get hooked up with York County District Court, because I don't want York employees coming up and taking these people out for court. And surely we don't want our people taking them to court down in York County where it's run rampant. So everything seems to be working well. Again, it's the credit of the command staff, the correction staff, and the medical people that are just top notch that have really kept me in line and made me proud to be able to sit here and tell you today, 6 months later, that we're doing a pretty good job in an area where you can't see this virus. It's not obvious in some cases, and we've been able to keep it out of the jail. I'll answer any questions. Major Courts, do you want to tell us how many arrests we've had from York in the last week and a half, 2 weeks?
So since that agreement with York County, we've had 18 arrests, and 9 of the 18 are remaining in custody.
Wow.
Okay.
Tom?
Yeah, any other questions? Steve? Yeah, Steve.
Yeah, a nasty question, Kevin. Related to York, have you given any consideration as how you audit your process to make sure that that things are staying as the protocols require?
I guess the big audit is checking in to make sure that we're following everything on a daily basis, which we
Yep.
do on a staff meeting or whatever. But I guess the big audit is how we end up, that first case that gets through, what happens. Again, I go back to flying the plane and trying to build it at the same time. You look at York, and if you can believe what you read in the media or see in the media, there were a lot of mistakes that, thankfully we had given some thought to. I don't know if they have the Abbott test. I will tell you, I sent that letter in April wanting an Abbott test, basically saying, we're like a nursing home. There's no way that I can get everyone social distance. I mean, there's even at our lowest number. And, keep in mind, we were down around 200 in April, May, and we're up around 365 and we're pushing 400 again. So, it's not, I'm open to ideas, but how we monitor our effectiveness, I guess, is continually checking to make sure people are doing their job, but also making sure that every week tells us that we're doing something right. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we're a lot lucky as well.
Okay, other questions?
Now, one thing I wanted to throw in is the count. We still are encouraging, and about 2 weeks ago, we almost had another protest. And that protest was suggesting that there would be some civil disobedience coming in. And that was at the same time we had taken on York. So I sent out an email to the Cumberland chiefs, basically saying, again, guys, gals, summons over arrest when you can, because we're really pushing the numbers. I was thinking last weekend, if I could take a look at sentenced people and release some to get the numbers down. But keep in mind, the court system just opened up about a week ago. So sentenced people are still kind of in the line. And I don't have a lot of options in trying to release people to get our numbers down again. So that's the other thing that kind of concerns me. I don't have a lot of choice in the matter. As you can see from, Major Courts' comment, I've got 8 that, arrests that are not, they're not going anywhere for a while. And until York opens up around September 25th-ish, I'm still holding 9 in addition to the inmates we were holding for York before this crisis down in York County. Lastly, Major Courts just texted me. DOC came in after the York County outbreak down there, and they're doing all the jails to basically look and see what we're doing. And they came in, and to my knowledge, they didn't have a whole lot of issues with what we're doing. And in fact, I think Major Court said that they learned a few things from us. So I'm not saying we're the greatest, but I think we've spent a lot of time on this, and I'll tell you, we spent a lot of effort trying to figure out what we're doing and how we can refine that and make that better tomorrow. I think I'm done.
Well, Kevin,
Okay, yeah, Sue.
can you tell us with how many from York that you had before this?
About 26 Major Courts. Am I close?
We were in the mid-20s before COVID, and we're like at 29 right now.
Okay. That's all. Yep.
Okay, yes, Steve.
Really a question for Jim. Is there any way we can deal with the district attorney and see if they can create an agenda for Kevin that those that need sentencing, they have an expedited process for them? That'll help us lower the count in the jail. I would think that would be to our advantage.
Commissioner, I do not know the protocols or the process that takes place on arraignments and bringing forth trial dates for different offenses. But I can talk to the district attorney just to see whether there is something that can be done to explore just what you just said.
And Commissioner, I would say, to throw my 2 cents in, I think that any movement with the DA's office would be marginally effective. Because most of the individuals I was cutting loose were at the lower end of the spectrum. Like if it was domestic violence related, I wasn't cutting them loose. If they had other major crimes, I wasn't releasing them early. And I was taking in, have they done some of their sentences? Where are they in their sentence? So there could be a few that come through that maybe have like shoplifting or whatever that they're sentenced and we just cut them loose. But again, I don't think those numbers are going to be huge because of the fact that for 3 or 4 months, really the court system kind of sat dormant.
Okay, Kevin. Yeah, my concern, I know I've read the reports about York. I mean, I don't have any firsthand knowledge of that, but it sounded to me like they had reasonable protocols that they basically just didn't follow. So I mean, I think it sounds from your presentation that we have really excellent protocols based on what we know now about how things are. I mean, this is, in March, they were telling us we didn't need to wear masks. Now they're telling us we do. I mean, and that's based on not people being wrong, but just based on whatever the state of the knowledge was. So this is an evolving thing. I think we have, one of the reasons I asked you to come tonight to talk about this is I wanted to get the state of our knowledge here and see what you're doing. But the piece that York seemed to have missed was, the best policies are great, but they are completely ineffective if they're not followed and enforced. And it sounds like you're doing that, and I'm pleased that that's the case. I also want to say I'm very, very pleased with the cooperation that we have extended to York County. I mean, you and your officers and your staff. I would hope that if we get some emergency situation comes up, that we would get the same, we would be able to reach out to other counties and get some help from them. So the first step in having that happen is to show willingness to do it ourselves. You've done that in really, I think, admirable fashion. So thank you very much for that. Any other questions for the sheriff?
I'll say that, I mean, all of the, I can't take all of the credit. I know Jim reached out to his equal, the county manager at York, and negotiated. That was the other thing. I mean, we're holding people over for overtime, et cetera. We were coming into Labor Day weekend, the last long weekend of the summer. It was just a perfect storm. And, when I talked to the command staff, they were adamant, and I don't disagree, that we needed an incentive, a stipend, not a, it's more dangerous, but just a stipend, knowing that, hey, if I might not, that weekend may not be all that particular to me, if I can make a couple extra dollars an hour and on by overtime. So I know Jim went back and forth with Zinser down there, and that's why I think if you listen to what I said, it started out and then it didn't materialize for a week. And that was at Jim's level. Because of the fact that we can't keep using and abusing our employees. And
Sure.
Quite frankly, they have risen, in my opinion, to the challenge. They got through Labor Day weekend, and we're still keeping the count around 365 inmates. And everyone's kind of going strong. So I can't take all the credit. It's the staff, it's Jim. The medical staff have been phenomenal. So.
Well, I appreciate it. I also appreciate that it was a group effort, and I understand. I mean, we can't instantly do anything usually, and so if it took a little bit of time to put it together, that's fine. The important thing is that it came together, and my hat is off to everyone who was involved in that, because I think it helps out York County, and shows that we're willing to cooperate across the county line, which is really how this ought to be. Anything further on this item from anyone. I can't necessarily see everybody, so just sing out if I don't call on you. Okay, seeing nothing further, why don't we go on to the next one?
Thank you.
Which is, and thank you very much, Sheriff and Major, for coming up to talk to us. Next is comments from the public. Mr. Kennedy, have we had any comments?
We have not had any emails, and as of yet, we have not had any from those who are currently watching this.
Okay, well, we'll come back to that toward the end of the meeting and see if anybody, if we've raised anybody's ire or what in the rest of the meeting. Yes, Mr. Gailey.
Chairman, I just want to remind everyone that we did receive a letter from Councilor Belinda Ray over the weekend. That letter was distributed to the commissioners. And that letter, a public comment is the way we're handling it, and that is applicable to 067 on this evening's agenda.
So we will be getting to that discussion very shortly.
Correct.
All right, thank you. Next is consent agenda approvals. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. You need to unmute. I'm seeing people look like they're making a motion. I can't hear anything.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Jameson moves and Steve Gordon seconds. Does anybody want to pull anything off the consent agenda, or are we ready to vote?
Vote.
Okay, seeing nothing, I'll call it by roll call. Commissioner Jameson,
Yes.
Commissioner Cloutier. Was that a yes, Jim? I couldn't see.
Shake your head, Jim.
All right, yeah, I think your microphone may be turned down. Anyway, I saw your thumb, and I'll take that as a thumbs up as an approval. Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
Commissioner Witonis,
Yes,
and the chair votes yes as well, so that the consent agenda is passed unanimously. Next is new business, action on the city's request for use of the Cross Insurance Arena. Mr. Gailey, I will turn this over to you, I think. And we did get a letter. We've got a copy of that letter, I think, was provided to everybody.
Yes. Thank you, Chairman. Back in the middle of August, we received a letter from John Jennings, the city manager of Portland, making a request on behalf of the city of Portland for the county to consider opening up the Cross Insurance Arena for the purposes of providing temporary day space and services to the area's homeless. That temporary day space would then morph into an overnight emergency shelter for the region's homeless. As I don't think it's anyone's surprise, there has been homeless issues within the region over the last couple of months. And the city of Portland has been finding many locations throughout the greater Portland area to house these individuals and families. Mr. Jennings goes on to say that they're going to be losing the ability to use the expo come the end of September, as they have a contractual obligation with the Maine Red Claws. And that would be something that they would need to open up the expo and deliver that facility to the Red Claws at that time period. So that letter was brought forth. It came in anticipation of the August 19th Cross Insurance Board of Trustees meeting, in which the trustees took it up as an agenda item that morning. And the trustees went through a very thorough deliberation around the request and felt as though there were a number of issues and concerns that they had with the request as it applied to using the arena. I won't jump into too much of it, as the letter from the chairman of the Board of Trustees is in the packet this evening. You've all been privy to it, in the public, anyone watching, I would refer them to the county's website if they wanted to see this letter. But it brings out a number of concerns that they have. Ultimately, they are bringing forth a recommendation by a vote of 6-0. This is a 9-member board. 3 members were absent that day. And just for the commissioner's understanding, City Manager John Jennings is a trustee of the Cross Insurance Arena, and he was absent that day from the meeting. And in conversations, he was going to abstain anyways from the conversation because of a conflict of interest. But I just wanted to make that known to you that John does sit on that, the trustees, and he did not participate in any of the discussion. But like I was saying, they took a 6-0 vote to send a negative recommendation to the county commissioners. I won't, like I said, won't go over the letter, but I think they spell it out pretty clearly on their stance on the request. So this item is now at the county commissioners level. As you are aware, the bylaws of the trustees is that they're advisory to the county commissioners. They are the overseers of the arena on behalf of the county and to support your efforts. The recommendation is now up to your level for further consideration and action. So I'm available to answer any questions that the commission has, but that's my presentation on this item. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jim. Any questions for Manager Gailey? Yes, Jim Cloutier. Jim, you're not muted, but we can't hear you. So no, still can't hear you.
Maybe that's the best format we should have going forward with Jim. I don't know.
I think he signed off. I think he's going to sign on again.
I hope it's not something Neil said.
All right, let's, while Jim's working out his technological issues, Sue Witonis, go ahead.
With it, I was at the meeting and I will support their decision. And I also would think that with the commissioners, need to take a stance on this and not go to the workshop and discuss it, because that's just kicking the can down the road even more. It was very obvious at that meeting with where the trustees were felt. And well, my opinion, that if we open this up to them, we're not going to get them out. And also, the letter here states that with the reason why that they need to get out of the expo, because they have a contract with the Red Cross. Well, it's my understanding that we have 3 contracts. So, and the trustees, they made of the offer to allow the Red Cross, to come up, to the CIA, and therefore that they could stay at with the expo. So I feel very strongly that if we open this up, we're leading ourselves into one big mess, because but once you get them in there, you're not going to get them out.
Yeah, Commissioner Cloutier. Yeah, okay. Sorry, Sue. Yeah. Didn't want to cut you off.
Okay, and I would believe that what they were talked about, they would take care of the Civic Center or the CIA, how from with the other departments and the agencies that are involved, that they would use with the volunteers. Well, we all know how that would work. So I will highly recommend that the commissioners stick together and will support the decision of the trustees.
Commissioner Cloutier. Loud and clear.
I've got a little bit of yellow from logging back in. This is the last meeting I just sat here and listened. I didn't get a chance to say anything. It worked out fine for me.
I didn't notice. So
I think we have all received, although I don't know that it is in the public record, a letter from all of the city councilors of the city of Portland over the weekend, maybe, that says basically, we have reviewed the CIA trustees letter. They appreciated, of course, the settlement that we're kind of all in this together, and this is a public facility that probably should be available for emergent public needs if it's possible. Understanding what Sue has said about, we should all stick together. I think we should also show as much solicitude of the considered opinions of that are expressed in that letter that we normally would show to anyone. And that says to me, they specifically asked us to, I interpreted it that they asked us to table this so that they could have some expert discussion with, I assume, people that operate the Civic Center and our staff about whether the circumstances can be managed so that this facility could be usefully applied to helping the homeless in some way. We don't need to decide whether they'll still be there next June. If they are, we've got bigger problems than even that. And I agree that would be a problem. I agree that that we have some contractual issues that would definitely have to be addressed, in the assumption that a hockey team could pick up and go to Lewiston probably is not well placed. So, but I would appreciate the opportunity. I think it would be appropriate for us to have a further discussion if they believe that there are substantial counterpoints to some of the points that were made by the trustees. Over the years, I've always said the trustees, at least speaking for myself, the trustees are far more talented and informed and able than at least the commissioners represented by me. And so I think very highly of their opinions and their approach. In general, I didn't see anything particularly out of line or inappropriate in what they had to say, but that's the beginning of public discourse here. And since we have really a rather detailed and fact-based letter from the city council, I think putting this aside for enough time for whatever information they have to be considered seems to me like it's appropriate. I obviously noticed the same thing that Commissioner Watonis did. The initial request was let us have our basketball team and why don't you take your hockey team to Lewiston? Neither one of those is a particular option as far as I can see. Since then, we have, I think, information that the hockey team is at least going to try to do a COVID compatible season. And that's probably an important factor if it's true. And as well, I think the latest letter from the city indicates that I read it and thought that it meant that the expo was not going to be closed up, but that may not be accurate either. We just don't know as we're sitting here. Clearly, the initial letter from the city manager seemed to say that was allowing the Red Claws contract to be continued was an objective. Whether they've now had to abandon that because of the scope of the problem seemed like it was implied in the letter that we got over the weekend. So at an appropriate moment, I'll make a motion to table this until our next meeting. But that's kind of the sentiment I have at the moment.
Yeah, Commissioner Jameson.
Where are we at? And now, for the sake of moving things along, I'll second Jim's motion. What specific information have we received, Jim Gailey, from the hockey team? Are they set to commence practices in early October?
No, on a typical season, they would be arriving at the arena, I would say the last couple of days of September, first couple of days of October. As we all know, this is not a typical season. Right now, their board of directors, that's the ECHL board of directors, the last I saw was hoping to start the season around the first or second week of December. In talking with the Mariners, it would be their wishes that they would have the ability to get on ice at the Cross Insurance Arena around the second week of November. And that would be whether that first week or two of December was good, or if it got pushed into just after the first of the year, they would still like to get into the arena around the middle of November.
Thank you. So they're moving forward, planning on a season of some sort.
They are. I think if I'm on their email list and they are still signing players, and all intents and purposes, they are moving forward towards an opening day. In keeping in mind, if the Mariners want to get on the ice around the middle of November, we need to start building up the ice about anywhere from 5 to 8 days prior to that. As it is a process on building the ice up, putting the paint in, putting the sponsorships into the ice. So need a little bit of lead time before we invite our first skaters onto the ice.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay, Commissioner Gordon.
No. Neil's
Oh, sorry,
not finished.
Neil, you still going? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, just
Didn't mean to step on your toe.
if we have the opportunity to fulfill our contractual obligations and secure some income in this very unusual season, I think we have to give that very strong priority. And as a result of that, I would be in favor of I would be prepared to vote on the issue tonight. I don't have any objection to deferring it. It's doubtful that we change my position that I think we need to go forward with the hockey contract and any other obligations that will allow us to raise some income and take some burden off our budget and the taxpayers of Cumberland County.
Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah, I appreciate Jim Cludier, what you're saying, Commissioner. But my sense is this: I support the trustees. We set that
Oops, have
board
we
up.
lost him, or is he just? Oh, there-
No, am I lost? Can't hear me?
I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. I said what I was indicating is that I support the trustees. We set that group up to do the internal parts and prepare the facility so that it would move forward and serve the citizenry. And I think they're doing a great job. And that's not to say that Jim doesn't believe that too. I'm sure he does. My sense is this: because of our commitment to the greater Portland medical community and the governor's COVID-19 program, I can't support this type of singular repurposing of the Cross Insurance Arena. It's not in the best interest, in my mind, of the county citizenry. On the other hand, if the issue for the city is the unavailability of the expo space to serve the Red Claws, I'm sure that we could try to make some arrangement with the Cross Insurance Arena to house their games and make it so that it's very comfortable and seems like a small facility, so you get the issue with the crowd and they enjoy the game as they do now. But that I think would be very appropriate, and it would serve the city's ability so that they could finish developing their alternatives for housing the homeless. So I'm not in favor of repurposing in a singular manner this facility.
Commissioner Witonis.
In with the letter that came from the chair of the board, what they state in there is that this is not the normal building. There's too many hidden parts of that. So in other words, to have that, our building with the homeless in it, they would have to have so much staff in there to make sure that, they weren't getting into parts, that they couldn't. And there's no way that you will block off, with that, because you need to get from one section to the other section to get down to where the basement is, where the showers are. So, I mean, it's not a good situation to house our people. And we just spent $30 million to rent that, to renovate that. And I'm sure the citizens of Cumberland County don't want to see where their taxpayer dollars is up again, to have to, to go back in and redo it again. Because I can't see this being, with the answer for the city. I'm not saying that we can't help the city, but I don't think the CIA building is the best situation to house the homeless. So I would support, I would support not to table this. No, wait a minute.
Okay, all
I
right.
don't want it tabled.
Okay, I
don't
got you.
want it tabled. That's what I'm saying, yeah.
All right. My feeling about this is a very unusual situation. This is a request from a government body that we deal with all the time. And, they're asking us for a favor. I think we all have I think we've all expressed our doubts about whether this would work. My feeling is I would like to have a little more information about this. We're in a situation. I mean, we've got essentially a Hooverville down in Daring Oaks during the day. We've got a lot of this is a pressing issue, and I think if we could find some way to address it, that would be great. I'm not sure from what I've seen, and I kind of agree with sounds like the consensus that this may not be the place to do it. I can think of some other. I mean, maybe we need to have some other consideration about this. I would support tabling this until we can schedule a workshop and kind of look at the thing all around. I appreciate that. I appreciate the trustees. I think they've given us a very thoughtful position on it. I'd like to kind of test it myself. I mean, we are the ultimate decision makers in decisions like this, and I'd like to kind of pick this out a little bit more to see what's there. So if Jim Cloutier wants to renew his motion, if nobody else will second it, I will. We can put it to a vote, and then if we vote not to do it, not to table it, then we can have a vote on whether we approve this request or not. And whichever way we go. Does that sound like a fair way of approaching this? Okay, Mr. Cloutier.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that's right. I mean, I have to admit on this record, I don't see how I could support it. There's too many unanswered questions, and it's not, in that situation, I think it's not really right for us to make a decision, because frankly, when you don't have all the information, it's easy to make a mistake. And there may be some way that is helpful. Commissioner Watonis talked about going to the showers. That was one of the points that the city councilors directly addressed and said, we know how to do this. We've got a lot of locations. We just need more locations. So that's why that's one reason why I think a little more time. We're not saying yes to anything, but it seems to me like getting all the information is a worthwhile thing. I am reminded that something like 38 years ago, I got a call from one of my clients. His name was Marty Joyce, and he happened to be the sheriff of Cumberland County. And at that time, he wanted to know whether he had the legal authority to open up a completely inappropriate facility, namely the gymnasium at the jail, as the first homeless shelter that we had in Portland. And his crack legal attorney said, I have no idea, but it sounds okay to me. And that was the beginning of serious homeless services in in Greater Portland and in Cumberland County. And that was occasioned by, frankly, a tragedy that had occurred in the coldest day of February. And the sheriff decided that things had fallen into his lap and it was time for him to either pass or take responsibility, and he took responsibility. So the county's got a long history, and the facilities now, of course, are much better than the gym in the old jail, which is currently, of course, a parking lot. So I will now make that motion that this be tabled to a workshop, and we'll see how
Okay.
that.
Do we have a second for the motion?
I'll second.
Second, Neil seconds. Any further discussion about this? Okay, yeah, okay, Sue, go ahead.
That I don't understand with what more of the information that we need that in order to make our decision. It's pretty obvious that it's not a building that's suitable for the homeless, or because of its size, its shape. And the other thing, well, look what they did to City Hall. Well, look at the mess over there that they make. So, I mean, who is prepared to have another situation? I would like that. So I don't understand with what more is information that can be provided to us, that would say, well, this is a good idea. And I mean, we have 3 contracts, and the one could start up, or by the time that we get this, with the workshop in place. I mean, I think our number one priority is the contract that we have with the hockey team. And, that should be the foremost, consideration, for this decision. Not that we need some more information, how we can make this building be suitable for the homeless. And I mean, that would be my thing, that we need to honor the hockey contract and the contracts that we have, and not want some more information and how we can take this building and turn it into the homeless.
Other discussion? Yeah, Commissioner Cloutier.
I don't profess to be an expert on how to do anything like some of the things that Commissioner Watonis was just discussing, but I will say one of the things that is obvious to me is in a building as large as the one that we own and hold for the public, there's enough rooms, there's many rooms, and there may be some feasible way that one or more of those rooms could be useful during the day or in some other manner. And all we're asking for, and frankly, what we really need is more information, because like I say, when you don't know the answer to a question, and a question was just posed by Commissioner Watonis about how that would be feasible, good thing to do is get the answer, because otherwise it's very easy to make a mistake.
Any other? Commissioner Gordon?
Yeah, I hear all this, and I appreciate the concern that my fellow commissioners are putting forth. When this issue came forth, I started talking with the trustees, and I think many of them have had the same concern, and they did explore some of these answers to the point where at least I was convinced that the decision that they made is appropriate. Therefore, I guess where I stand is that I support the decision that they made, given the research that they did. And I think that it's important that we give that some consideration, that we have a body that we have assigned responsibility to, and we give due consideration to the decisions that they make. Thank you.
Yeah, unless anybody feels very strongly, I'm going to call a vote on this one. Very strongly, if they want more discussion, I'm going to call a vote on this one. And the vote is the Jim Cloutier's motion, whether to table this for a workshop at either the next meeting or maybe a sooner date to be determined. So I'll start with Jim. Jim, how do you vote on the motion?
Yes,
Mr. Jameson, how do you vote?
No.
Ms. Watonis,
No,
Steve,
No,
Gordon,
no.
and the chair votes yes. The motion fails 3-2. So then I would entertain a motion, a further motion about this matter. I suppose we could just not respond to it, but
We don't really need to respond if there's nothing pending. We have our contracts.
it's a request to do something, and we've talked about it, and we've decided we're not going to table it, and we're just going to let it. I mean, we just let it die, I guess, is one thing. I guess our options are do nothing, nobody makes a motion, we move on to the next item and it doesn't get passed, or somebody makes a motion to I like positive motions, yes, we're going to do this, and it gets voted down. So if someone wants to make a motion, I'd love to hear it, and then we can discuss it. If nobody wants to make a motion, we'll just pass this along and go on to the next item. Sue.
that I would say that we should send a reply back, to the full council saying that we took this up for discussion and that the commissioners felt were very strong were to support the trustees of the CIA. Would
Okay.
that be all right, Jim, to do that?
Yep. I see a nod. He's muted. Oh, there we go.
Yes, if that's the wishes of the commissioners, we can draft a letter.
Then it's over and it's done with, and then we move on. So.
Yeah, do we need a vote on this, or is this the consensus of everyone? I mean, I'll take a
Well,
unanimous.
I
sense.
hear you, and I think you're right, Tom. We got to make some sort of a stand here. I make a motion that we support the decision of the trustees of the Cross Insurance Arena not to allow its use.
And I'll second it.
At this point in time, at least, right?
Correct.
At this point in time, I mean, things can always change. If that's the sense of that motion, I'd probably even vote for that. So any further discussion? Any further discussion about this? Okay, Steve, Gordon, how do you vote on this?
Yay.
Sue?
Yes.
Yes. Neil
Yes.
and Jim Cloutier?
I'll abstain.
Okay.
I didn't think you could do that. That's not a fair.
Well, you're not supposed to.
You
you're not
can't
supposed to-
abstain.
I can't, but I can't really reach through the screen and choke it out of him. So
All right. I will vote yes.
okay, and the chair votes yes as well. So, and Jim, if you can draft a letter for my signature, do we want to all sign it, or is it just enough coming for me? I'm happy to.
Fine.
Okay,
Your signature.
yeah, draft something for me, and I'll sign it by proxy or however we end up doing that. So, okay, good. Thank you very much. Thank you for the consideration of this too. I mean, this has been something that's been kind of weighing on my mind because there's a great need. And I think the limitations of the building for what they want are very clear. And I think that certainly is an issue. But if they come up with a better idea or another way of doing it, then maybe we look at it again. But anyway, for the moment, that's fine. Where did my agenda go? Hold on. Here it is. All right. Next, okay, 2020, it's item number 20-068, 2020 home projects. Who's going to talk to us about that? Kristen, is that you?
Yes,
All
Kristen's.
right. You have the floor.
Thank you. I wanted to just give you a quick update on our 2020 home projects. As you might remember, we did voted on the budget for these projects as part of our annual
Whoops.
allocation each year.
I
So
think she should have stayed home with the email there.
We allocated $432,000 to home funds, and with these home funds, we received 2 applications by our deadline, and those 2 applications, one is in the town of Bridgeton and the other is in gray. Both of these, you should be in your packet, some more information about them. Both of them are senior affordable housing projects. The one in Bridgeton is 48 units and the one in gray is 27 units. We're excited about both of these because, as you might remember, for the past couple of years, all of the projects we've been having for our home funds have been in the greater Portland area. And as you know, we have a strong need, especially for senior housing out in the other parts of our county. So we're really happy about these projects moving forward. Both of them stand a pretty good chance in the Maine Affordable Housing LIHTC process. The Bridgeton application has already received all the local approvals that it needs. And the project in gray is adjacent to Meadowview 1. And so they're really not expecting a lot of opposition for that project either. So both of these hopefully will be under construction by the spring of 2021. So we're really looking forward to seeing these projects go through. Just a quick update on our home projects from last year. The Vesta project that we funded is coming close to construction. If you drive down Westbrook Street in South Portland, that's one of our home CDBG projects that I'll be talking about in a few minutes. But the street is looking great, and the construction of those projects is moving along quite nicely, and it's staying on track despite everything that's going on right now. So on the home front, home affordable housing front, we're actually looking pretty good right now. So that's some positive news for you guys. And I think that's all that I have for the home update. Do you have any questions about either of these projects?
No, looks good. It looks very nice. I looked through the proposals, and I mean, I'm getting to the age where I'm starting to think about, affordable senior housing too. So anything we can do to increase the stock. I hope I got about another 20 years before I have to really worry about it. But there it is.
Both of these projects used really great architecture firms that have done a lot of work in the past, and especially the project in gray. The architect for that project specializes in aging in place. So what they're doing there is they're really trying to keep seniors housed in affordable housing as long as possible, which then lowers the burden, the tax burden for everybody by not moving them to a nursing home where they would need higher levels of service and care. So it's really mixing those two kind of models to kind of benefit everyone as long as possible. So we're really happy with these, the aesthetics of all of them and everything about them.
Yeah, I have close relatives who are benefiting from aging in place sorts of developments, and it's very nice. It's a much better than staying at home until you can't stand it anymore, or moving into a very nursing home type setting, which is I don't think anybody's really happy with doing that. So I was very impressed by this project.
It's a really great model that they're building here.
Yeah, so I'm glad to see that. Okay, Jim, do we need any action on this, or is this just an informational report? This is just informational for us. Okay. Next item is 20-069, which is CAPER approval.
So this is me again.
Hello again.
And this one is our plan that we submit to HUD each year. This is our consolidated annual performance evaluation report. We submit it each September. This year we had the ability, if we needed to delay turning this in, but so many of our projects were able to stay on track that we're fortunate enough that we're able to just go ahead and turn in the report on time. As you might guess, a lot of our projects were on track, and then come March, were highly affected by COVID. So our CDBG projects are kind of broken down into 4 categories. And our public service category, almost all of our projects were staying right on course right through February, meeting all of their goals, typical numbers that we usually see from these organizations. And then March hit. And a lot of them had to significantly change their models in order to continue to help the clients that they are helping. And as you might imagine, the clients that they're helping are low and moderate income individuals. And those are the people, at greatest risk in our county for homelessness due to COVID, due to job loss. So they really changed up a lot of their models of how they were going about helping people, and in some cases, even changed the type of services that they were providing. One really great example of this is the Westbrook Intercultural Community Center had been offering financial literacy and English language classes to parents of new Americans within the school system. And they completely changed their model around to trying to help parents understand how to help their kids through the online learning system, how to help them log in, how to help them set up, how to help them find food resources and rent resources to help keep them housed. They really took on a model of kind of a catch-all of anything that their clients need, and took on even additional clients in the area that weren't in that New American category, just to kind of help people get through this. We're really proud of the work that a lot of our nonprofit organizations did to really try and keep people housed and fed this past spring. In the public infrastructure category, because it was deemed an essential service, all of our projects that were supposed to start construction in the spring, every single one of them started construction, and every single one of them stayed on track, which was quite impressive and not what we were expecting. Where we got held up was in the supply chain, is highly affecting our projects for next year. So projects that were in the process of going out to bid really got held up, or had bids that were significantly higher than we were expecting. And those projects, we're trying to work with the municipalities. We know that all of our municipalities are on a really tight budget now. So in some cases, if we need to, we're waiving our 20% match that we use for CDBG, just to make sure that their projects are getting done, or allowing areas to change their scope, just so that we can make sure our projects are getting complete, even if the municipality no longer has the match funds that they thought they were going to have. In our housing category, we had two big dollar projects that are being completed. One is Thornton Heights. It was a demolition project. We put a lot of CDBG dollars into getting rid of the church that was there at Thornton Heights. The buildings had been abandoned, contaminated. It took a lot of brownfields cleanup to get the land to a place that now affordable housing can be built on it. If you drive past, it's quite impressive, all the work that they've done there. And then the other project is the one that I mentioned a few minutes ago on Westbrook Street in South Portland. The entire street is being transformed, and the new affordable housing projects by Avesta are going to make a huge difference in that area. A lot of good work is being done there. And the last category is our planning studies. And as you might guess, the planning studies were not really affected by COVID. They had gone out to bid beforehand and were completed. One of them was for the town of Standish, looking to do a community center. And then North Yarmouth did a study in the center of their town, traffic study there. And that's all that we have for our 2019 projects. We also finished up a few 2018 projects in 2019. And while I have you, I just want to give you a quick update that our 2020 projects, a lot of them are staying on track as well. We're also using our coronavirus relief funds that the commissioners appropriated in May to do business assistance. That will be launching next week through GPCOG. We're doing lots of rental assistance. We're doing what we can to help keep people housed and help keep businesses afloat while we can, until things kind of return to normal. If anyone has any questions about the CAPER or any of our projects, I'd be happy to answer.
Steve Gordon, I see your hand.
Kristen, I was surprised about the 20% variation allowance. Is that something the feds will allow, or is that our own criteria?
So the CDBG program requires no match whatsoever, but we do report match funds to HUD. So we, as a county, decided that 20% seemed like a good number. And so we're able to put that in numbers, whatever we want. And we also have some projects that have well over 100% match. So it offsets it. Our match numbers are quite high for our municipality, actually.
Good. Yeah, Steve, keep going.
Well, I move that we approve her report and have it sent on to HUD.
Do we have a second for that? A second from Commissioner Jameson? Yes. Do we want to have further discussion? Susan, did I see your hand?
No, that's fine. No, that's fine.
Okay. Any further discussion on this? Then I'll do a roll call. Steve Gordon,
Here, yes?
Susan Latonis,
Yes.
Neil Jameson,
Yes.
Jim Cloutier.
Yes.
Oh, I can't see him, but he's here in spirit, I guess. And then the chair votes yes. So that passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Kristen. I really enjoy your reports because first, it's usually really good news. And secondly, you're very enthusiastic. And thirdly, you're extremely knowledgeable about what's going on. So that is a really remarkable combination of things in our meeting. So thank you so much.
Thank
And-
you.
And Chairman, thank you for recognizing Kristen. It's been a very abnormal year for CDBG as she's just distributed about $1.5 million by the first week of May. Then she got another $960,000 that she had to move very quickly on. And just within the last couple of days, she notified me that we're going to get another $940,000 as another phase of the CARES Act. So she's had responsibility this year. And her staff member, Sandy, are doing a phenomenal job trying to keep this all coordinated and moving forward and getting the money spent as quickly as possible. So nice job, Chris.
Well,
Thank
if she has problems spending it, I got a couple of home projects that I can.
I could use $900,000. Even half of that, yeah, would be great. So. Anything further on this item? Seeing none, let's move on. Kristen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you. Good job.
next is item 20-070, action on electronic signature policy. And Mr. Gailey, I think this is yours.
Yes, this item comes forward I believe it was around the beginning of this year, the commissioners expressed an interest on taking a look at what electronic signature policy would look like for the county. So staff got it into our work plan. We developed a policy, presented it to the commissioners in a workshop on July 21st, seeking input from the commissioners. All went well in that workshop, and we have reformatted our policy template, and it is before you this evening for formal acceptance as part of our admin regulation number 21, electronic signature policy. As I stated in July 21st workshop, this is not a catch-all, and you can really go very elaborate on a electronic signature policy. This is really kind of a ground level policy to get us into the process. We can build off from this, but I thought the areas that we will be touching upon is a good test run on how this policy would work and how we juggle it, not only for county staff, but also working with the county commissioners also through their needs of signing important documents on a weekly or monthly basis. Again, I would say it's a great first start, but I think we could build on it as time goes on and the needs arise. And I am available for any further questions on it. Thank you.
Questions?
I guess I'd like to hear
Yes,
from.
Steve.
I'd
Steve
like to hear from my fellow commissioners that are in the legal field, whether they're comfortable with this or not. I don't want to put them on the spot, but it seems to be in their realm.
Yes.
Yes, Neil, any thought?
He said yes.
Or Jim Cloutier, do you have anything to add to this? There's
Yeah.
specifically, go ahead.
I think it's fine. It's a good idea, and there's certainly been plenty of times in the past when we wish we had it available over the years. Legally, there's nothing remarkable about it that I can see, except for sometimes, if you wander down the road towards bonds and that kind of stuff, underwriters get really nervous. But
yeah,
short of that, should be fine.
Yeah, well, what strikes me about this is not even new technology. I mean, it's been a long, this is essentially authorizing a facsimile signature, which has been done before there was, I think, even before the telegraph. I mean, there's case law on what happens with, you can have check signing machines and so forth, and there's case law on what happens, if that goes awry. And this is not a new. I thought this was kind of I'm perfectly happy with this. I don't have any problem with it, but I think it's a little bit of a retrogressive policy. My question is, do we consider just using one of the commercially available electronic signature platforms like DocuSign, or there's several other ones?
We can get to that point, absolutely. But this first glance was really to define what our was, the scope of the policy, and then work off from that and figure out the software platform to best use to do this type of digital signatures.
Because this is a very old school kind of way of doing it. It's essentially approving an electronic facsimile signature and giving certain people the authority to affix our signatures to stuff with appropriate authorization, which is fine. I think the safeguards are fine. Now, if I suddenly discover that I've bought a house in the Bahamas or something that I wasn't aware that I had done, and there's $200,000 missing from an account up here, then I may have to revise my opinion about this. But at the moment, I think given the staff we've got and so forth, that's not really a big concern of mine. I think it'll facilitate our work and create a paper trail. So I thought it was fine.
Will you take guests?
Motion?
Anything further? Yeah, I'm looking for a motion
So moved.
to approve this
I'll second it.
policy. Who moved and who seconded?
I moved.
I second.
Susan
Okay,
second.
Jim, did you? Okay,
I got it.
all right. So we have a motion and a second to approve the policy. I'll call the roll. Commissioner Cloutier.
Yes.
You need to yeah, there you go. All right, I got a yeah. Commissioner Jameson,
Yes.
Commissioner Watonis,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. So that is approved. Thank you. Okay. Next is item number 20-071, action on the Spectra Management Financial Incentive. And Jim Gailey, I think this is yours.
Yes, this is an annual item that we bring forward to the county commissioners. Actually, I say annual, as of 2017, once the Cross Insurance Arena became a department under county government. But since then, we have brought this forward, and it's the financial incentive fee as defined by the management contract that the county has with Spectra Management Corporation. The incentive fee involves three categories: financial, food and beverage, and qualitative. The financial and food and beverage sections are pretty set in stone and are formula based. So not a lot of wiggle room. It's plug in the numbers, see what it looks like at the end after applying a formula to it. However, the qualitative section of the incentive fee is more of a hands-on and larger discussion goes around that category. So when we brought forward the work, actually, let me back up. What happens on an annual basis is that I meet up with the general manager of the Cross Insurance Arena. We walk through all three categories. We spend the most time on the qualitative. And the qualitative section is broken down in achievement of goals, maintenance and repair of the facility, customer service surveys that were conducted, and quality of food surveys that were conducted. So there's a number there, and there's a self-grading report that the general manager goes through, which then I go through, and I, from my experiences being in the arena over the previous year, I make comments and adjust the scores up or down. And then we usually agree on the scores that we bring forward to the trustees for a recommendation. Ultimately, the trustees make a recommendation to the county commissioners. So without going into the finer details of this packet item, I want to bring forward that the qualitative breakdown of the achievement of goals was a 0 out of 5%. This was largely because the Cross Insurance Arena lost the last 3 months of the fiscal year in their budget and lost upwards of about 18 shows, which impacted the number of events they held at the arena, which did not trip the achievement of goals section. The maintenance and repair scored a 4.2 out of 5 on the scale. Customer service surveys scored a 4.5% out of 5. And the quality of food surveys scored a 3.85% out of 5. That added up into the formula, which brought forth that the maximum that they could have achieved in the qualitative was 21,733. With that score I just previously made mention to, they were able to achieve 17,603 incentive for the qualitative. The food and beverage, which is more of a rigid scoring system through formula, they scored a $16,613 incentive out of a possible $32,599. And the financial incentive fee, they were able to score $38,782 incentive out of a possible $54,332. So in comparison to the maximum that they could have received this year through the incentive fee of the contract of $108,664, the management company an incentive of $72,998. And I would just preface that as that was impacted by COVID. And when we passed the budget prior to the July 1st start date of this year, we had allocated somewhere in the vicinity of $80,000 to $82,000 to cover this incentive. And as you can see, we're about $10,000 less in actual payout of the incentive fee. So this item is in order for the commissioners to act on. The trustees have sent a favorable recommendation for your review and approval of the 2019-20 financial incentive fee for Spectrum Management Corp. Thank you.
Discussion.
I make a motion to approve.
Motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Jameson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Gordon? I see yes. I see a finger. Commissioner Witonis?
Yes.
Commissioner Jameson?
Yes.
Commissioner Cloutier?
Yes, yes.
And the chair votes yes, so that's unanimously approved. So thank you very much. And thanks for the hard work on getting that proposal. And it seems to make a lot of sense. what you've done, given the situation we're in. All right. Finally, item number 20-072, presentation of the 2021 county manager's budget. I have my book right here, Jim. I hope you explain it all to me.
Well, I'll explain you the Cliff Notes.
Okay, that sounds good.
We'll dig into the entire budget over the next 2 or 3 months.
Good.
Of a final vote in December.
All right.
Travis, could you pop up that PowerPoint that I provided you? There we go. All right, this time of year again, as state statute requires us to provide a proposed budget in September. And we typically meet up with the county commissioners, their first meeting in September of each year. So first slide. This year's budget was one that was if I was going to say anything about it, it was very unique. It was a great deal of teamwork, as the guidance that I provided staff in May was to really sharpen the pencils. We understood from working with our member communities that the member communities were really hurting at the tail end of their fiscal year ending June 30th. And there were a lot of budgets that were trimmed back as they were being developed this past spring for the municipalities for the coming year. So we need to do our part also in support of our member communities and work to try to reduce our budget as much as possible in support of their efforts in keeping their budgets low. This year, there is a real emphasis on just fixed costs, just keeping the lights on. There's not a lot of special projects in this budget. There are no new positions in this budget. The capital has been adjusted significantly from where we would typically head on this year with a bonding season upon us. And we are working towards reducing our exposure and our tax rate to the member communities. So our total budget expenditures this year is $60,097,295. That in totality is up just under $611,000 or 1.02%. That includes county, jail, and cross-insurance arena expenses, adding in the enterprise funds and the grants. Next slide. First, we'll jump into the cost center for the jail. As the commissioners are aware, our jail budget is based on a fiscal year, July to June. So we've dealt with this budget already. We presented this in late May to the commissioners in workshop and in June in a public hearing setting, and you ultimately approved this budget in June. Revenues are unchanged in the current year. Our jail expenses, they're up just over $546,000 using the maximum of 4% allowed by state statute. So that equates to the jail's needs from taxes of $546,045. Next slide.
Can't hear you. There you go.
Under the cross insurance cost center, we have a reduction in bond and principal interest. As the commissioners are aware, back in February, Alex worked through a process of refinancing our bonds. One of them was a 2012 county bond, which was a smaller bond, and the much larger bond. And the reason for pursuing the refinancing was the $32 million cross insurance arena renovations bond. We went from a tax exempt bond to a taxable bond due to the fact that the federal government a couple of years ago no longer allows tax exempt bonds to be refinanced. However, the interest rates were so good and the lowest in history at the time of refinancing, we were able to switch over from a tax exempt bond to a taxable bond and still save a significant dollar amount per year over the life of the 20-year bond. As you can see, this year, the principal and interest savings will be just over $116,000. We then have the revolving line of credit being proposed at a reduction of just over $39,000. There will be no capital at the cross insurance arena. We have made significant investments in the cross insurance arena over the last number of years. We are opting to take a year off this year from capital expenditures. And then the operations account, we have had to bump that up. And that is largely because it is we're in the land of unknown. We know that we lost 3 months and anywhere from 15 to 18 shows and took a significant financial hit in last fiscal year. And we are still empty and anticipating hockey coming to town in another month and a half. But we are still needing to cancel shows in September and October. And we are needing to increase the operational subsidy to the arena for this year of just over $98,000. In totality, the total budget is down $57,721 or down 1.65%. Again, this this budget was reviewed by the Board of Trustees back in April and May, referred to the commissioners in June, and the commissioners acted to approve this budget at their June meeting for the current fiscal year that we're in. Next slide, Travis.
Whoop, good question.
Yes.
Jim, in your bonding there, the 73 million, is the chiller covered under that?
Travis, could you go back one slide, please? You mean the 2 million?
No, the chiller.
Yeah.
Was
The
that
chiller-
covered? Was that covered in the capital there?
No, the chiller falls out into a different bond. It was the 2018 bond.
Oh, okay. So it's covered already.
It is covered.
Yeah, it's baked into those principal costs that you're seeing there already.
All right.
Now, the total needs from taxes. This is what we need to raise from the member communities through our annual warrant. The county is up $286,570 over the current year, percent change of 1.74%. The jail, as I previously stated, is just up $146,000 or at 4%. The cross insurance arena is down $57,721 or a negative 1.65%, for a totality of needs from taxes of $774,894 or 2.3%. Just to give you a comparison to the previous past 2 years, that 2.3% was 4.99% one year and 4.5% the other. So I just wanted to make mention to that because that shows you the significant reduction that we are proposing in our budget this year due to the COVID and what the towns are experiencing of their own. Next slide. Just a quick pie graph showing how this is distributed. The county side of the budget is up, or represents 49% of the total dollars, as the jail is at 41% and the cross insurance arena is 10%. Next slide. Getting into debt, capital, and tax increment finance. Actually, it's not tax increment finance. That's my prior life. tax anticipation note, actually.
There you go.
That's a little, that's funny. We don't do tax income financing in the county. But our bond debt is up just over $76,000. Our interest is up just over $36,000. Capital reserves, which is our non-debt CIP, is reduced by $142,000. And our tax anticipation note, not tax increment financing, we feel as though because of favorable interest rates, we were able to reduce that budget line item by $30,000. So in total, we are proposing a reduction of $132,754 or a negative 8.16%. Next slide. Human services and grants. We are proposing $290,000, which is up $4,000 from the current year, or 1.4% change. Slide. Capital. This is our year that we typically bond. As you notice, we have reduced the non-debt CIP by $142,000. We are proposing some high-priced items to go into a bond, though we are not bonding as much as we have in the past. We are being very strategic on pulling this bond, and it is one that is for projects that are at least 20 years. I think with the exception of the radio system, that might be a 15-year item, the remaining are 20+ year, which really spreads out the payments, and we're able to reduce the impact to the 2021 budget by the issuance of this bond. Next slide. And that concludes the budget for this year. It was, like I said at the beginning, a true pleasure to work with staff, and staff really came to the table this year in making sure that we brought forth a very responsible budget during these tough times of a pandemic. So I'd just like to personally thank all of them. And we are slated to present this to the Finance Committee this Wednesday at 11:30. And we'll start off the budget process after that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Gailey? And I can't see everybody, so you have to kind of sing out.
Tom?
The
Steve.
screen. Steve, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, right. Jim, the thing that concerns me, and this comes from my utility background, is, and believe me, I appreciate the effort that you've certainly put into this, but you make mention that you took some cuts in the budget line and scaled back capital projects. My concern there is you're going to have to catch up sometime. And what are you looking for in that? I mean, so we do it this year, or we don't do it this year. Is that rolled forward into something where we're going to have to double up, or we're spreading it out more? Or what's your strategy?
Steve, we feel very confident that we are in great shape on the capital side. We felt as though over the last couple of years, we have done a tremendous amount of work to our buildings, in purchasing equipment for our departments. And if there was any one year that we could really take a breather, it was this year, because we did not have a number of projects really on the front burner to really push forward. Those projects that we do have, we are bringing forward. There are smaller items within the non-debt CIP that's in your budget book that you can take a look at. They are not many. And the projects that we feel that are going to be really ripe by the time we pull this bond next summer are those that fall within the bond. And that will give us the available funds to make sure that those projects go forward. But at no point do we feel as though we're going to lose any edge on the capital side. And I think if it's just lined up perfectly for us this year, that we could take a little bit of breather.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? And I can't see everybody on the screen, so if you have it, just unmute and say hello. Seeing, we don't
Chairman,
need
thank
any
you, Mr.
action on this, Jim? Oh, sorry.
I just want to
Yeah,
mention.
Jim Cloutier.
Thank you. I just want to mention, had a local town manager in our office probably a month ago. And right about the time we had a communication out to indicate that we're going to defer any change in our fiscal year. And this manager expressed, I'm going to call it heartfelt thanks that we did that, because it took a great deal of budget pressure on that line item off the table for the town. And he thought that was a very constructive and helpful thing. So it's not technically completely tied up in this budget, but it was an entanglement we were going to be dealing with that we've now put off for a while. So I just wanted to mention that.
Tom? Do we
Okay.
make a mo,
Is that Susan?
yeah, do we need to make with a motion to send this on to finance?
I don't,
Yes.
Okay, as I make a motion that we accept the county managers, our budget, and I will move it on to the finance committee.
Second,
do I have a second for that motion? Is that Neil seconding?
yes.
Okay.
Can I suggest proposed budget? May I suggest
you-
proposed budget?
Okay, well, yes.
Okay.
The proposed budget.
Yes.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take the roll. Commissioner Witonis,
Yes,
Commissioner Jameson,
Yes.
Commissioner Cloutier,
Yes, yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. So you have your budget to send along, and we'll see what that enormous but very dedicated committee will do with it.
And Jim, thanks to you and your staff for all of your extra effort under these very difficult circumstances. We appreciate all your efforts.
Thank you.
All right. Now, comments from the county manager.
Thank you. A few comments tonight. You should have received last week the 2019 report that was done, submitted by all the departments. It came out terrific. I want to recognize Travis for his work on this. He collected everyone's reports and really spun it into a very attractive and informational annual report. So thank you, Travis. Job well done. The other item is we have recently brought on a new safety coordinator. In the past, the safety coordinator for the county was a dual position, a role that kind of like an assistant facilities director and a safety coordinator. The majority of the job was based on the safety coordinator's position. We have restructured that job in that now it is 100% safety coordinator. There is some changes up at Maine Municipal Association in how they deal and work through their programs. And we feel as though we need to have a greater review and emphasis on our safety program across all of our buildings. We have recently brought on Lori Simons, who comes to us from a safety coordinator's position for the city of Portland. And so we welcome Lori, and we're thrilled that she comes in with a full tool bag of knowledge, and she's hitting the ground running, and it's great to see. And we're hoping for great things in the coming months. On a sadder note, I received late last week the resignation of our EMA director, Joe Chappell. Joe and his family have decided to move closer to Joe's family down in the North Carolina area. I think Joe's actually going to find himself in the Virginia, Washington, D.C. area. Joe has been hired by the Federal Transit Administration as an emergency management planner for them. And so he's going off to work for the federal government. We wish Joe all the best, and he's done a fabulous job bringing EMA, the progressive and planning world of for county government. So we're going to miss Joe, but we are currently actively searching for his next his candidate for that position. And hopefully in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we'll have a better understanding of the candidates that we'll bring forth for interviews. And then the last item I had, and I've already made mention to it, and that was another $900,000 plus allocation from Department of Housing and Urban Development through the CDBG program. This is significant dollars that is being brought into our county. You know, we are happy with 1.5 million on an annual basis. To receive $960,000 in June and another $930,000 or $940,000 in September is just a significant amount of money. And I give Sandy and Kristen in the CDBG office all the credit in the world, because it's not easy distributing this money, as a lot of work behind it. They're under a lot of pressure on pushing it out the door. And before they can actually push it out the door, there's a lot of federal hoops you got to jump through, and making sure that you got all the paperwork done first. So they're going to be busy, and they're usually working a 4-day work week. Over the last 2 or 3 months, they have been working 5 days a week, just to be able to keep up with all the work that CDBG has in it. So just want to show my appreciation for all their hard work in moving this money out the door. Other than that, that concludes my communications. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Next is executive staff comments. Alex, do you have anything to add to what we've got?
Sure, I've got a few things. So at this point in time, we now have August in the books, which means we, believe it or not, are 2/3 of the way through 2020, which I think everyone probably would celebrate given the nature of the year. I think the news that I would bring is the worst case scenarios that I was worried about for this current budget year haven't necessarily come true yet. So that's the good part. Revenues are all over the place. There isn't a single budget that isn't a couple of cases over or under. They're just very unusual looking. Expenses are steady. For the most part, we haven't seen any kind of a major uptick, with one of the possible exceptions being the protests that occurred at the early part of the summer. That had a budget impact. That was a lot of people putting in a lot of extra hours, and it showed up, but there was nothing to be done for that. So far, I'm not going to say good, but I'm going to say, the sky has not fallen yet. Hey, for me this year, that's way better than you might expect. Jim can attest to some of my panic attacks through April and May that he had to bear witness to. FEMA, the first round is out the door of our submittal for reimbursement from FEMA. That consisted of many rounds of various cleanings that were necessary, some equipment that was needed, lots and lots of temporary plexiglass, and of course, masks, gloves, sanitizer, masks, gloves, a rather large amount of that. So that's out the door for their review. We'll see how that all goes. It's always a bit of an interesting FEMA to see what things are and are not accepted. I feel like we have played it very much by the book, and we haven't really put in anything that I particularly think that they would take offense to. But like I said, it's always a bit of an interesting back and forth there. The other thing that I will mention is we have started to and have received a fairly normal amount of property taxes from communities in thus far. Typically speaking, we get a number of communities that pay right around the end of August, early September. They have done so, not more than normal, but not necessarily a lot less than normal. So far, so good there. Most of the big communities are still yet to come in. So that's the real thing that we keep our fingers crossed for. And that's what I've got so far from 2020. That's the update as things currently stand.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Is that all the executive staff we've got here?
Travis?
Travis.
Oh, Travis. Yes, there we go. Travis, hi. What are you going to tell?
In case you're wondering, no other comments have come in, first of all.
Oh, thank you. I was going to ask.
I'll just mention very briefly, I know it's been a long meeting, I don't want to take up much time, but now that sort of the dust has settled through 2020, at least hopefully, Jim and I have talked about exploring reopening the work that we were doing on community broadband projects. So we're revisiting some of the Wi-Fi hotspots that we had sort of had pre-modeled. And we're also talking about developing a small grant program for communities that have started to show interest a few years now into our work, trying to encourage regional broadband projects to take sort of the first steps, which is to either perform needs assessment studies, potentially cell phone coverage studies, surveys among their community about satisfaction with their providers and so on, in order to figure out whether they then want to move forward with something bigger. And one of the things that we've talked about is in some of the funds that we've held available for that, supplementing the work that they may be doing through community foundation loans. If they missed that round of community foundation loans, sort of providing our own version of it, or finding ways for them to supplement the work they're doing with extra county funds should they agree to work with neighboring communities that are doing some of the same research. So we're trying to turn these little pockets into bigger regions that are looking to solve their connectivity issues, many of which they discovered for the first time in the spring when they realized that a lot of students couldn't get on the internet, and the rapid movement to home-based healthcare became a very, glaring hole in some of these towns. So we're all of a sudden seeing some rural towns showing interest, and we're trying to find ways to help them clear hurdles and support their work to figure out if there are projects down the road that would help their communities be better connected.
Okay. Let's see. I guess next is comments from the county commissioners. Commissioner Witonis.
Well, the only thing I have to say is I had the pleasure of last week of attending my first GP COG as on the executive committee. It was interesting. So I'm going to.
Okay. Commissioner Jameson.
Thank you, Tom. I first want to thank all the members of our executive team and the other staff members who have done an extraordinary job under difficult circumstances, not just during this past month, but during this entire experience. Your dedication and creativity and ability to squeeze a buck has left the county in as good a situation as we could. So on behalf of myself and all the commissioners, we thank you for all of your efforts, and we're happy to be there in support of you. Also, that goes to the sheriff's department dealing with very difficult circumstances, both in the jail and out there in the community. These are difficult times, particularly with the level of COVID infections. And I just wanted to say thank you to our workers out there in both the jail and and all of our rural communities. Schools are open, and that's a good thing. Let's all be aware of that. We send out our congratulations to all the districts and our hope that it will be a safe school year and it will be a productive school year. We know for your children it's not the best circumstances. However, government has done the best they can, I think, and particularly school districts, to assist you all in that process. Hopefully there will be some fall sports, and the students will be out there to interact, and we hope those all go well. We want to wish everyone a very safe rest of the month of September. Thank you.
Commissioner Gordon.
Thank you, Tom. First, to follow along a little bit with what Commissioner just indicated, was that I'd like to thank the public for their covert efforts. I'm seeing that people are beginning to really pay attention to wearing masks, especially, I guess, because of the school effort, and it is having an impact because not only are the parents wearing the masks, but so are the students, and I congratulate you for that. That's being smart. As the new position I have with the Maine County Commissioners Association, I'll let you know that we've hired a lobbyist for the next 15 months, and it's Jim Cohen of the Verrill Group. And so I would ask if we have any legislation that we need to put forth that we begin to get it developed, because we've got a biennial election that's going to take place here, and we need to get that stuff into the hopper so that it can be considered. And I'm talking about some minor things. Jim Gailey mentioned to me, for example, that the fees that are charged for delivering papers, et cetera, are so low for the county that we lose money at it. Well, that's not equitable. And so there's, things that you can think about that you're aware of. I asked you to bring them forth so that we can at least get them on a list and they begin to get worked on. Alex, my congratulations to you, because anytime that I feel the executive in charge of finance doesn't give a dour report, it's positive. So thank you for that. You didn't indicate we were sinking, so we're on a level playing field. And the one challenge I'm going to throw out here to Jim is, it seems to me that with a little bit of the time maybe that we as commissioners have, not that you as staff have, but shouldn't we start thinking about a strategic plan update during this hiccup, so that we can kind of regroup where we are and get ourselves aimed in where we want to move ahead. Certainly that struggle is going to take place with us deferring, changing our fiscal year, and then the things that are going on electronically, people moving into the area because they found that they can work from home and they don't have to be in New York City. Those things are really having an impact on our communities. And it's just, I think it's time that we had that discussion. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. Commissioner Cloutier.
I don't have very much to cover, but I can't help but again note, as we have a few times over the last few months, that Cumberland County, after taking a little bit of a gut punch early on, the statistics related to the COVID epidemic are really quite good in Cumberland County, and the misfortunes of our friends in York and in the small burg of Millinocket remind us that vigilance is really very important, and kind of endurance as we kind of wander through this there are some studies now that are suggesting that with the advent of fall flu season, we're going to, as a nation, suffer dramatically, and there will be a very large vulnerability that could lead to as many as triple the rate that we're experiencing right now nationally. And yet here we are in southern Maine, well ahead of the nation in terms of mask compliance, according to a recent study, and also one of the least unsafe places in the country as we continue on. So we kind of owe ourselves a pat on the back for that, but we also have to maintain our vigilance. And unfortunately, the degree of investment in schools over the years has not kept pace with modern ventilation, modern almost anything. So that is likely to be a source of some problems as we go forward, and we'll have to keep an eye on that. But so far, so good. That's what I have.
Good. Thank you. My comments, I'm not going to add on to the excellent observations that have been made by the other commissioners. I would only note that we are in an election year. This is every 4 years we have a major election. We all have our various opinions about how the election ought to come out, but the one thing I would urge everyone to do is, if you're not registered to vote, register to vote. You might want to just check to make sure you're still registered. We don't easily fall off the voting register rolls in Maine, but it's always worthwhile checking that out. Consider voting absentee or early voting, just to avoid the lines and stay safe. But I would urge everybody to get out and vote. It's I keep saying this: democracy only works if everybody's voice is heard, and that means that all of us have to kind of chip in and give our opinion about how the direction of the state, the country, and the county should be. So now's your chance. So let's do that. Just vote as early as you can and be safe while you're doing it. So thank you very much. I think we have an executive session on the calendar. Is that Jim? Is that still queued up and ready to go?
Yes.
So I think we would in a second. I'll be asking for a motion to go into executive session. What will happen after that is we will be disconnecting our public feed. We will not be reopening the meeting to the public, because when we come out of the executive session, the only thing we will be doing is adjourning this meeting until the next one. So if you're watching us,
Chairman?
yes.
Can I interrupt?
Yes.
There may be a motion on the back end of this one. I know we typically don't
Okay.
have motions on the back end, but this one may have a motion.
Well, then I retract if you want to see what we do, and when we come out, you'll just have to wait until we come back on. So we will certainly let you know about that. I was not aware about that possibility. So usually the executive sessions are the end of the thing. So anyway, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So move.
Anyone.
So
All right.
Second, I'll second it.
Moved and seconded, and this is under 1 MRSA section 405-6D for the opportunity to discuss negotiations. So all in favor? Let me call the roll. Susan Witonis. I think that's a yes. Neil Jameson.
Yes.
Commissioner Cloutier.
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Gordon.
Yes.
Yes, and the chair votes yes. That's unanimous.